pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I would like to thank my honourable friend for West Bromwich East for securing this important and very timely debate. According to the Metropolitan Police, in my constituency of the cities of London and Westminster, we have sadly seen an unprecedented 1,350% increase in the number of anti-Semitic incidents since the awful scenes of October the 7th in Israel. And I'd like to take an opportunity to quote from an email I received from a Jewish constituent of mine who is in her late 70s, I believe, and is born and bred in the United Kingdom. And she says that some of my non-Jewish friends ask me if I feel safe now. The answer is generally yes, but I would not want to wear my necklace with its Star of David when it can be seen. I would not feel safe walking past the pro-Palestinian protests if they knew I was Jewish. I love this country. I cannot think of living anywhere else. I have never been to Israel, but Palestine supporters, when I spoke to them in the street a couple of years ago, said I had no business being here, and a neighbour told me I should not be living in Belgravia. I should go to Golders Green or Stamford Hill. Outrageous. The cities of London and Westminster has been the location for the solidarity with Palestinian protest over recent months. And as I've said before, I support peaceful protests, and I will always do. And I think it's important to recognise that the vast majority of people taking part in these protests do so peacefully. But I do fear that a minority of people are using these protests for anti-Semitic purposes. And I am glad to see that these protests tend to no longer end at the cenotaph, and that the protest organisers have been more sensitive to moving start times and locations to reduce clashes with Shabbat services in nearby synagogues in my constituency, and I really do hope that will continue. I know that, as I said, the majority of those on the protests are peaceful, and they have been across the country, but we have seen too many incidents of anti-Semitism on these marches, and I think the police were slow to react initially, but they have got better, and we have seen now hundreds of people arrested, and that is right. We cannot live in a country where we shrug our shoulders when somebody is anti-Semitic. We wouldn't do it if someone was being racist towards a black person or somebody of Muslim heritage. It is therefore equally right not to allow it to happen for the Jewish community. I think the incidents we have seen are wide-ranging from intimidating language, physical abuse, and, as we've heard already today, criminal damage to property. Unfortunately, they have all been reported, but one of the biggest issues I have had raised with me as an MP locally is the abuse that is happening on university campuses, a place where students should feel free to express themselves and their identity without threat of intimidation. Of course, I'll give way.
Thank you very much. I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. She's making a very, very salient point. One of the things which frightened me most was a recent conversation with a Glasgow University student who had gone along to a meeting about Gaza and about the war going on there, and he thought it was going to be a kind of wide-ranging discussion, and suddenly discovered himself at the centre of a meeting which was very anti-Semitic, and he did not feel comfortable. He felt under threat. But would the Honourable Lady agree with me that part of the problem is that the public is not aware of this, the public is not seeing it, and the media is not expressing in the way that perhaps we would like the danger of growing anti-Semitism in this country?
I thank the Honourable Member for her intervention. I absolutely agree. And I think one of the most important books I have read over the last couple of years is David Baddiel's Jews Don't Count, where, as somebody who has always been a supporter of the Jewish community, and I've spoken about going to a kibbutz when I was 18 and have been to Israel several times, I had never really thought about the cultural anti-Semitism in this country that none of us really think is racist. Well, many of us do, but it is seen as, oh, it's Jewish, it's fine. But as I said earlier, if it was targeting a black person or anybody of colour, it would be considered completely differently. And those involved in that type of humour, and I use that in inverted commas, Madam Chairman, would be cancelled. They may even be prosecuted for hate crimes. But as I was saying, according to the Union of Jewish Students, there has been a staggering 500% increase in anti-Semitism on university campuses. I heard about this firsthand soon after the 7th of October attacks, when a group of Jewish students from my constituency, from King's, LSE, Westminster University and Imperial, came to visit me. And one young man, British born and bred, of Jewish heritage, from North London, experienced his first anti-Semitism on the tube coming to visit me. And that was shocking for both of us. But these students, who are part of the Union of Jewish Students, UJS, are doing absolutely fantastic work, as we've already heard today, to support Jewish students over the past few months, and obviously before that. But these people informed me, these students informed me, that they have received over 400 calls to their hotline reporting anti-Semitic abuse over the last few months. And not only do the UJS support students, but they have also provided training, as we've heard, to thousands of people on campus to help them spot anti-Semitism, root it out before it can harm students. And I think, as we've just said, that one of the big points is understanding what anti-Semitism is. It is racism, and we do need to call it out. After I met with the UJS, I wrote to all the Vice-Chancellors or equivalent of King's College London, the University of Westminster, Imperial College London, and the London School of Economics and Political Science, where I highlighted how critical it is that we protect freedom of speech on campuses. Of course we have to protect freedom of speech, but there is a fine line between speaking freely and causing harm to groups of people and minorities. And I reiterated in my letters how we must have a zero-tolerance approach to both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on campus. Yeah. I also asked Vice-Chancellors of these universities to inform me how they were providing any additional support to Jewish staff and students after the 7th of October attacks. And I was encouraged by their responses, which were far more rigorous in their condemnation of anti-Semitism than some US college presidents recently offered. Initiatives like the LSE's Report It, Stop It allow students to safely and anonymously report abusive or threatening behaviour. However, this sort of mechanism is only effective if the reported abuse is met with swift repercussions for the offenders, which I hope the Vice-Chancellors of these universities will continue to enforce. University campuses are rightly hotbeds of debate, sometimes of contentious topics and views, but as I said, there is a fine line between protection of freedom of speech and protection of people's rights and human rights to be safe and feel welcome in their campuses, in lectures and elsewhere. Ms Vaz, it is not only Jewish students who are feeling intimidated. Unfortunately, Jewish primary school school children are being targeted as well. Yeah, some feel so uncomfortable that they cannot show their true identity when on school trips. And this came to me so clearly in November last year, when I had a group of Jewish primary school children come to visit me. They were from my honourable friend for Finchley and Golders Green constituency, but he couldn't make their meeting, so he asked me to meet with them. They were about 10-year-old boys, and the first thing I noticed when I met them, they were all wearing baseball caps. And I said to their teacher, why are they wearing baseball caps? To hide their kippahs. And I was so struck, Mrs Vaz, that there were British children in the House of Commons hiding their identity for their own safety. How have we come to that? That has got to stop. And I have heard from rabbis across my constituency, and I'm very blessed to have so many synagogues in the cities of London and Westminster who have told me how fearful and how scared, generally scared, their communities are. And we really must do all we can to protect them. And I'm pleased that the Metropolitan Police in Westminster Borough has taken this very, very seriously and has increased the number of patrols around synagogues and now liaises with rabbis. And I would like to thank the Westminster Borough Command and the neighbourhood teams for their work. Mrs Vaz, I hope with today's debate and the continuous hard work of organisations such as the Union of Jewish Students, the Antisemitism Policy Trust, the Community Safety Trust and the Board of Deputies of British Jews, we can continue to support those impacted and slowly and surely rip out any form of anti-Semitism in this country, and to celebrate and thank the Jewish community for their most amazing contribution that they have made and continue to make in our country. Thank you.